a serial killer is on the loose in New York City. Throughout the summer and fall, a strange ice cream truck would show up on the block. As you'd imagine, all the neighborhood kids would rush over to get a treat, but each time the truck pulled away, some of the children would have vanished. No one really knows how or why Needles Kane first went mad and began his murdering spree, but by the time he was caught, he had become perhaps the most prolific killer in the city's history. At the start, he used his refrigerated ice cream truck to hide and dispose of certain things, but by the end, Needles had become brazen, butchering countless innocent people in broad daylight.
Marcus, no!
Marcus doesn't live here anymore.
Please, no! Marcus, wait!
Shut up and bleed, you mother—
On Friday, October 13th, 2001, the clown was finally captured by the police. With his killing spree finally put to an end, Needles simply accepted his fate. He just put down his ice cream scoop and surrendered. In custody, Needles was found to be psychotic. Medication had absolutely no effect on his homicidal tendencies, and having been deemed a lost cause, the mass murderer was sentenced to death.
Come the night of my execution, there must have been over 1,000 people gathered outside to watch me fry. I was upset about that. There should have been more.
However, during the public execution of the killer clown, a strange preacher appeared, and just as the electric chair was switched on, the holy man cursed Needles.
As I fried, he started screaming out like the freak he was. He asked God to curse me, to burden me forever with the flames of hell. It took me less than a minute to kill 3 police officers and get my mask back on. I never used to believe in curses, but it's been 3 months since that night, and the pain gets worse every day. So let me tell you something, boys and girls. I sure as hell believe in curses now.
Rather than simply dying, the serial killer's scalp would become permanently ablaze, the incessant burning a constant, painful reminder of his many sins. In the ensuing chaos, Needles was eventually subdued, and with the first attempt at executing him having failed, they locked him away in Blackfield Asylum to rot.
3 months in the nut house. It was the longest I'd ever been confined. So a few people had been killed. It wasn't my fault.
Please, no, I got a family.
Shut up and bleed, you motherfucker. Well, maybe it was my fault, but I had my own problems to worry about. The old man's curse was beginning to piss me off.
It seemed as if Needles was destined to spend the rest of his life in a high-security mental ward until one day he got an unexpected visitor.
But then one day, he showed up. Calypso, he called himself. It was a stupid name. I wanted to kill him there and then, but he made me an offer. He said he ran some kind of crazy contest. If I won his game, he promised to show me how to bring an end to the curse. No more headaches.
The rules were simple. A demolition derby deathmatch held on public streets. Anything goes, with the winner being granted their heart's greatest desire. And Needles only wanted one thing: to put an end to the curse the preacher had inflicted upon him, to put an end to the flames that constantly emit from his skull.
As much as I had those old urges of mine, I kept them to myself for the moment. I figured I'd play along with his little game. After all, I could always kill him later.
Of course, he isn't alone. The contest has countless other competitors, but in the end, only one will be left standing to receive their prize. And even then, that prize often isn't quite what they bargained for.
I'll find you, Calypso! I'll fucking find you and fucking kill you!
Twisted Metal was always a dark franchise, but throughout its tenure on the PlayStation 1, the series maintained a sort of edgy comic book vibe. The games were colorful, the characters were cartoonish and ridiculous, and the acting and delivery was amazingly campy. In fact, during development of the series' first entry, they filmed live-action sequences for each character's ending, and they're perhaps the greatest films ever made.
You don't know what it was like for me. And I, and you, and them. You don't know!
The video encoding quality is abysmal. The audio is constantly peaking. The boom microphone is regularly dipping into the shots, and the acting is perfect.
No! Ah!
What do you say, Mr. Kane?
Sounds good to me, baby.
No! Black! Where are you going? No! What are you doing with Black?
For example, Needles, who is often referred to by the name of his ice cream truck, Sweet Tooth, has entered the Twisted Metal contest in order to reclaim his best friend, and upon completing the game, the player would have been treated to what is perhaps the strangest cutscene ever.
Let the winner in. Congratulations! You have won my contest. Welcome to my home.
As you know, Mr. Kane, you are now able to claim any prize you request.
You just don't know. You don't know what it was like for me. And I, and you, and them. You don't know!
Look, I'm a bit confused, Mr. Kane. You do understand, by winning High Octane, you are entitled to any request of any value. And yet, you asked me for this?
Oh man! Give me that! Give me!
A paper bag? You can't be serious.
Oh man! Down! Down! You get down the street! You said it would be easy! Do you know what they did? Do you? Now it's my turn! It's my world! It's my word! It's my turn! It's my day! Boo! Cuckoo!
Young lady, I owe you a debt of gratitude. You are welcome to stay in my realm for as long as you desire.
You guys are both sick. I'm getting out of here, and I'm taking your truck.
Unfortunately, these scenes never made it into the game. According to the Twisted Metal wiki, they were cut for numerous reasons, including the overall campiness, poor production quality, and the fact that by today's standards, they're incredibly sexist.
We want babes! Yeah!
Done!
This was an era where all marketing towards teenage boys basically just amounted to, hey, let's throw some babes in there. Let's not forget this legendary moment when a British television show brought out a Lara Croft cosplayer to surprise two kids while they demoed Tomb Raider 4. I guess the showrunners were expecting the kids to be like, whoa, look at this babe, but instead they were just like, what the fuck?
Miss Lara Croft.
The main reason these tapes were cut from the game was because at the last minute they changed its name from High Octane to Twisted Metal, which meant that Calypso's dialogue no longer made much sense.
Free of the high-octane competition.
In an era where old, damaged 90s VHS found footage horror videos have become super trendy, it's crazy to think that this was actually made in 1995. Anyway, the Library of Congress needs to preserve these films as culturally and historically significant. After the tremendous success of Twisted Metal 2, the series sort of went astray, with original creator David Jaffe being unable to direct the third and fourth entries in the series for boring business reasons I'm not going to get into. Eventually though, Jaffe would return to the series and direct what is now widely regarded as the greatest car combat game of all time, Twisted Metal Black. Furthermore, for the first time in the series' history, the game was M-rated, and holy shit was it M-rated. Gone was the silly comic book aesthetic, replaced with a dark, gritty, realistic take on the competition. Gone were the wailing electric guitars, replaced by moody and dramatic orchestral pieces. In the earlier games, it was implied that Sweet Tooth was some sort of killer clown, but now it was explicit. However, the best part of the game were the cinematics.
I was out like the dying heartbeat of a little girl. It was the first time in forever I hadn't felt the burning and the dreams. Boys and girls, those were some wonderful dreams. All my greatest achievements flashed before my eyes. The scale of what I'd done, the sheer volume of people I'd killed, it was breathtaking. But like all good things, it had to end sometime. When they captured me, the only thing I could think was, what a waste. All those people I hadn't killed yet.
Each main character has their own storyline told through a series of incredibly stylish, well-written, and well-acted movies. Don't get me wrong, Twisted Metal Black's gameplay is fantastic, but the cinematics were the icing on the cake. Each character's story begins with them rotting in Blackfield Asylum, usually for initially vague reasons. However, Calypso appears, killing all the security and breaking the patient out in exchange for their participation in his contest. Furthermore, Calypso sweetens the deal by offering each of the twisted drivers that which they desire most. At the game's midway point, upon defeating the first boss, your character is knocked unconscious and dreams of the events that led them to be institutionalized. Upon completing the game, we're treated to the climax in which Calypso finally gives them their prize, often with disturbing consequences. In Needle's case, Calypso offered to break the curse that left him burning for eternity, but there were others, including the man who cursed Needles. Jebediah was a preacher, a man of God. However, one fateful day, his faith would undergo a brutal test, for he was to perform an exorcism on an infant child.
I had been approached by a young couple who brought to me their child. I was to perform one of my most important duties, an exorcism. But the beast was too powerful. Even as I ministered to the child, the demon brought its foul influence upon me and entered my mind. My soul was trapped. All I could do was cry out inside as I tore that church apart. The demon's hatred raged all around, killing everyone in the church. Countless millions of years it had been hounded by the warriors of God, and now it was going to make me pay.
Possessed by the demon that had inhabited the child, Jebediah killed everyone in the church. Everyone, including the baby. However, as the police arrived, the demonic strength left the preacher's body and he surrendered.
And then the creature abandoned me, right when I needed it the most.
Get your hands in the air! Do it now!
Abandoned by the church for his grisly crimes, Jebediah would eventually be institutionalized at Blackfield Asylum, where the demon's voice continued to taunt him.
The Lord does work in mysterious ways. He giveth and he taketh away. So it was with my freedom. In my years alone in that dark place, I would often hear a voice calling to me from within.
You are my chosen one, Jebediah. You are my child, here to do my bidding.
Truly, I believed there would be no escape from the demon inside me. I wasn't even a real preacher. I was an evangelist, rejected by the church. I didn't have the strength to fight the demon alone. But one day, I was given a chance for salvation. His name was Calypso. He came to me with a proposition. If I won his contest, he would reveal the truth. It had been 2 years since the beast had entered my mind, controlling my actions, making others believe I was responsible for those killings. But now I had a second chance. I accepted the offer willingly. All I had to do was win, and a path back into the light would be opened unto me.
If Jebediah wins the contest, he approaches Calypso and demands his prize, to have his name cleared, for some way to prove to the church and everyone else that he wasn't responsible for what happened during the exorcism all those years ago, that the demon possessing him was simply too powerful for him to control.
The contest was mercifully at an end. I had triumphed over the darkness. I visited Calypso. It was time for him to prove my innocence and clear my name. And yet, he seemed hesitant. I made no promise to clear your name, he said. I only promised to show you the truth. And the truth, he said, was that the demon wasn't real. The voice inside me was a figment of my imagination. My God, it was all in my mind. The exorcism? It wasn't an exorcism at all. It was simply a baptism. It was Judgment Day in that church, and I was the angel of death. The truth had been delivered indeed, but not by God, but by Calypso. He was right. I was, as they say, insane. My whole life I'd been trying to silence that voice. I even performed rituals to show my loyalty to God in hopes that he would save me. But nothing worked. A man cannot hide from himself. There is only one path before me.
Of course, if Needles Kane wins the contest, things play out much differently.
The contest was over, so I went and saw Calypso. I asked him to make good on his promise, to bring an end to all the pain, to take away my curse. He offered me a vial. He said inside it held the blood of a man who'd cursed me on the night of my execution. He told me if I drank it, my curse would be over. But he also said, if I ever returned to my killing ways, the antidote would wear off, and the curse would come back to haunt me. I had to decide. It took me all of 10 seconds. Let's face it, boys and girls, a man has to have his priorities. I killed Calypso about as well as I ever killed anyone. Now that I'm free, I'm going to be the greatest of all time.
However, this isn't the end of Sweet Tooth's story. Curiously, that year, Twisted Metal would see a most unlikely entrant, an 8-year-old boy with the last name Kane. Needles Kane had a younger brother, and in many ways they were exact opposites. Whereas Needles was spontaneous, brutal, and ruthless, the youngest Kane child was a brilliant but sensitive, autistic boy. Ostracized by most of the other kids in town, the child spent most of his days with his father, Charlie Kane, who drove a taxi cab.
Last year, everything was perfect. My dad drove this cab. He used to take me with him sometimes. I have a brother, but my dad won't let me talk about him. He says my brother became really, really bad when he started driving this ice cream truck. Me and my dad, we were like best friends. But one night, there was this passenger. He had this gun. He killed my dad and then ran. I just sat there while my dad died. But then, I had this idea. I was able to put together this controller. It made my dad alive again. I control him now. People think it's weird. They don't like it. They want to put me in a home and bury my dad. But I don't want him to leave me. I don't want to be alone. That's why I entered this contest. When I win this game, Calypso promises he'll make everything all better.
Unlike most of the other contestants, the youngest Kane child isn't institutionalized, but rather seeks out Calypso of his own volition in hopes that he can find a way to stay with his zombified father forever. Unfortunately, even after the boy wins the contest, we learn that Calypso had other plans.
I had won the contest. I went to Calypso and asked for my prize. He promised that he'd make everything all better. It was a trick. He destroyed my controller. It killed my dad. I begged my dad to come back. I even tried to put the controller back together. But Calypso wouldn't let me. He said things, in time, would be all better. He said he needed someone to train to take over his contest when he died. He said my brother would have been the perfect choice, but since I killed him, I was the next best thing. He said it was in my blood.
As you can see, Calypso's prizes are often a monkey's paw situation. The winning contestant is generally offered that which they were promised, but in accepting it, they often must pay a tremendous price. And one of the best examples of this is Dollface, a young girl whose head is fully encased by a mask of steel and porcelain.
I was a bad girl one time. And now I'm gonna pay for what I did forever and ever and ever. I should have done what I was told. I should have been more careful. I shouldn't have defied Mr. Creel. That's why he did this to me. I've been alone for so long. I dreamed about my boss, Mr. Creel, working on those creepy masks he used to make. It was my first real job after college. I didn't want to screw it up. I wanted Mr. Creel to like me. But then, this one day, I made a terrible mistake. I didn't mean to upset him. I didn't mean to be so clumsy. But I was just so stupid. I could feel the nails crushing the mask down on my face. And to make sure the mask stayed on tight, Mr. Creel made a weird-looking key. He said it would make sure the mask would never come off. One day, I had a visitor. His name was Calypso. He said he could make it all better. He said we were gonna play a game. It was the key. The only one that could open my mask. 7 years I'd been locked away inside my doll face. If I won the contest, I'd get the key. But I've been so bad. Do I really deserve to be free?
Upon winning the contest, Dollface approaches Calypso to claim her prize, the bizarre key that would free her from her prison. However, as is typical with Calypso, there's a catch.
now I was gonna be free. I went to see Calypso. I told him I wanted my prize. But you know what? There's always a price to pay for something you really, really want. If I took the key, Mr. Creel was gonna die. Why couldn't he just have been nice to me? It's funny, now that I had the key, I didn't want it anymore. I like my new face now, much better than the old one. It doesn't cry and it doesn't look scared, and it'll always be pretty, even when I'm old and gray inside. There's a whole lot of people in the world just like Mr. Creel. Someone has to show them that they can't do bad stuff to people like me.
Interestingly, Calypso isn't super consistent with what he does. For example, when Sweet Tooth wins, Calypso offers Needles the antidote to his curse, but with the stipulation that the clown never kill again. Meanwhile, Calypso is happy to just give Dollface the key to her mask in exchange for Mr. Creel's death, and yeah, she didn't want to kill him, but also fuck that guy. Sure, she ultimately doesn't use the key, making her former boss's death entirely pointless, but overall, as far as deals with Calypso go, this is a pretty solid outcome. When the winning contestant's desire is inherently evil or based on revenge, Calypso generally grants it, usually in spectacular, bloody fashion.
Calypso said all I had to do to get my prize was step aboard. That pilot had taken everything from me. It was right time he learned how it felt.
There really was no catch this time. Billy wanted revenge, and Calypso gave it to him. Raven, the driver of Shadow, has a similar experience. A teenage goth girl, Raven was institutionalized after a traumatic incident in which 2 high school bullies threw her friend into the ocean, causing her to drown.
I didn't know how to swim either. There was nothing I could do.
Like Junkyard Dog before her, Raven's desires are simple revenge, and Calypso is certainly capable of providing that.
I'd won Calypso's stupid game. He said it was time to claim my prize. I didn't know what Calypso was getting at first, but then I began to see. It's weird. As I pushed that first pin down, I felt something give. It was like pushing into a person, and from far away, I could have sworn I heard someone screaming. It took 2 days for the cops to find the bodies. When they got there, well, let's just say it wasn't a very pretty sight.
If it wasn't obvious by now, Twisted Metal lore is complicated. Obviously, only one contestant can win, so each ending is its own sort of what-if scenario. Thus, in the final Sweet Tooth story, in the final Twisted Metal game ever released, things play out very differently.
I'll find you, Calypso!
The story begins with Sweet Tooth recounting his first murders, which didn't go very well.
She was the one. She was the only one. There have been so many people I've killed over the years. But her, she was the only one who ever escaped. She was the one that got away. I don't blame myself. They were my first murders. Oh, boys and girls, she didn't make it easy. But she was a fighter. She actually hurt me. That's how she managed to escape. That damned picture.
While the killer clown was able to dispatch most of the family, their young daughter managed to defend herself and escape. Furthermore, Sweet Tooth found himself frozen upon viewing one of the family's photos. Something about it struck a nerve with him, Obsessed with his would-be victim that got away, the deranged killer enters the infamous Twisted Metal contest with the hopes that upon winning, Calypso will take him to wherever it is the girl is hiding.
How many years has that been? And I still think about her. And I still crave her death. I just have to win Calypso's stupid little contest, and any prize I ask for will be mine. Calypso. They say he has many powers. When I win, he's going to send me where she's been hiding all these years. And this time, I'm going to finish what I started.
As the game progresses, it's revealed that shortly after his ill-fated first murders, Sweet Tooth tracked the girl down to a psychiatric hospital.
There was a time, right after she escaped, that I almost caught her. I could sense where she was. Her fear. It was so ripe.
Then, Sweet Tooth kills everyone in the building. Literally everyone. And it's amazing, and I can't show it because it's actually nuts and I'll get demonetized.
But I had just missed her. Oh, that name. How I hated that name.
Say cheese, cheese.
It reminded me of how I hated him. How I hated being him. His stupid little life. That stupid little job. It took me years of screaming and clawing and breaking him down. Years of calling out to him, trying to get him to set me free. But he was such a coward. Then one night it happened. One night I called. And he answered. And after I got him to carve me, I killed him. For my first murders, I chose the perfect targets. The perfect family. I chose his family.
Marcus, no!
Marcus doesn't live here anymore.
Please, no! Marcus, wait!
Shut up and bleed, you motherfucker.
In an incredibly dark twist, we learn that the family he killed was his own. The girl who got away was his daughter.
Where did she go? I'll find her. Can't hide from me, little girl. Can't hide from me.
Upon completing the game as Sweet Tooth and winning the Twisted Metal contest, the clown approaches Calypso, who, if you haven't figured it out yet, is literally the devil, like Satan, and demands his prize.
The battle was over. I had killed almost everyone. But she was still out there. And Calypso knew where she was hiding. For my prize, I told Calypso to send me where she'd been all these years. Oh, tonight, I'd finally get to cut her.
Take me to her now!
Your wish is granted.
Calypso, where's my goddamned prize?
Look around, Sweet Tooth. You've been given your prize. That night, when she first encountered you, she was so traumatized. She was so damaged. The hospital just wasn't really working for her. So she checked herself out and made other arrangements. She's been dead for 10 years.
You can't kill me! You can't kill me! You can't ever kill me! I'll find you, Calypso! I'll fucking find you and fucking kill you! You will kill me!